Finally this evening, wearing your faith on your feet. In July of 2020, Jonathan Isaac, a professional basketball player with the Orlando Magic, gained national attention by standing during the national anthem when most players knelt. In that moment of courage, God directed his path toward even bigger and bolder moves, thanks in part to the direction of his pastor. I recently had the pleasure of speaking with Jonathan and his pastor, Dr. Duron Hepburn, about his current venture and the biggest step of faith so far, starting a shoe brand and sportswear company that honors God. All right, gentlemen, it is an absolute pleasure to have you here both to talk about, Jonathan, your journey, and of course your pastor has been a part of that journey in a major way. Let's start off by discussing your faith in God, but your journey to God.
My story starts in Bronx, New York. I was one of 6 kids and grew up in a Holy Ghost rolling home. We went to church, it felt like every day. My dad was always demanding us to learn the word, but it was never something that was really tangible for me. It was just tradition. I didn't understand what a real relationship with Jesus looked like. Fast forward, my parents end up splitting up and I'm 10 years old and I moved from Bronx, New York to Naples, Florida. And I really struggled with fitting in, making friends, and I started to develop a self-insecurity about who I was, about just myself, and that led me to finding basketball. And basketball started to get me everything that I thought I wanted, the love, the attention from my peers. The girls started to want to talk to me. The boys started wanting me to be on their team and everything. Lo and behold, I become the #1 player in the state of Florida. I go to Florida State University, and behind the scenes of being big man on campus, I'm taking anxiety medication. Teammates don't know, parents don't know back home. One coach and one trainer knows about it, about these internal struggles that are going on behind the scenes. I leave Florida State after my freshman year, get drafted, 6th pick to the Orlando Magic, and still having this battle, now just excelling, going to the NBA, of ups and downs before games, being so anxious and tormented of just fear of making mistakes and losing everything that I thought I had gained. I wasn't living for the Lord. I was just doing my own thing, having my fun in Orlando. And one day, I'm on the elevator, and this guy, I don't remember if he was coming off or coming on, one of the two, and he stops me. And he says, "I can tell you how to be great." And I said, "How?" He said, "You have to know Jesus." I said, "Oh man, I know Jesus. I'm a Christian," all that stuff, and just kept it moving. And I keep seeing him from that moment on all the time. In the elevator, front of the building, parking lot. I remember just seeing him all the time. He would invite me to lunch. And I'm just in the back of my head, like, I do not want to go to lunch with anybody. Like, I'm to myself, I don't know what this guy wants from me type of thing. And finally I say to him, "Look, if I see you one more time, I'll go to lunch with you." Lo and behold, I think it's like the next day, I go to lunch with him, have a great conversation, cool. So that lunch ends. I'm like, okay, I never got to see this guy again. And I ended up not seeing him for a while. It was weird. But it's so interesting now looking back about how God just orchestrates things and orders our footsteps, all those different things. And so my old trainer from high school came to Orlando, and we went to see a movie. And behind the scenes now, we're playing for the Orlando Magic, and one of my teammates invites me to chapel service. And it's like 60 minutes before every game, they have this chapel. And the chaplain says, "Luke 6:46, why do you call me Lord, Lord, and not do what I say?" I had never heard the verse before, but it resonated with me. And it stuck with me to the point where I was playing, I was thinking about it. I was sitting on the bench, I was thinking about it, thinking, that's me. If something goes wrong, I'm going to call out to God. But I really didn't care about what God had to say about my everyday life. And I didn't know that Jesus was so confrontational with that verse. And so that's playing in the back of my mind. My trainer's coming up to Orlando. He would always want me to do Bible studies with him. When I was younger, I'd say, "Man, I just want you to be my trainer." He says to me, "Where are you at with God?" And I'm like, I'm thinking, I'm searching, I'm reading. He says, "If you keep searching, you're going to find." I leave the movie theaters that night.
And were you really searching?
I really was.
Okay,
gotcha. Because of that chapel service, I started like, you know what? I'm going to at least look into it. Like, I don't want to call myself a Christian if I'm not a Christian.
Right.
And so I'm leaving out of the movie theaters and I'm driving down the street. I'm about to make a right turn and there's a car about to make a left turn. And we sort of kind of meet like that. And I look and it's him. It's late at night.
Downtown, just driving at the same time.
Wow.
We both roll down the windows and I'm like, "You, me, we have to go to breakfast tomorrow." And I'm driving back to the place and I'm like, "God, like, you want this guy in my life. I don't understand it. I don't know why." And really, it's history from there. I don't want to go into the entire story.
No, yeah, tell him what happened. Then after that, it was around Thanksgiving time.
Yes.
And he wanted to tell him with the hamburgers.
Yes. So I had an idea. I was reading the word and I was like, Jesus said, "Whatever you do for the least of these, you do for me." And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna buy a bunch of hamburgers and hot dogs and pass it out to the homeless. And we went to breakfast that next morning, and I told him about it, trying to show him like I'm a Christian, I'm gonna do all this stuff for the homeless. And he's like, you can't do that. If you're gonna feed people, you gotta feed people correctly. And I didn't know at the time, but they have a catering with the church. They feed a bunch of homeless people all the time. But I didn't know it was a church. I didn't know he was a pastor. And he says, if you buy the food, I'll cook it.
I knew that if he came to know Christ, I knew his life would take off. God, when we come to know God, God just enhances our lives. So it was easy for me to say to Jonathan, I know how you could be great. If you know Jesus, God's going to begin to bless you from all ends. And when he came to know Christ, that's when the book took off. That's when God began just to open doors for him, his brand. Everything took off when he came to know Christ.
Talk about that first big step that you took in your walk.
I'm at home, and I have this feeling to just preach. And I'm feeling this like something inside me saying, preach, like say it, like go, like, and I'm like, what the heck is this? So I start sweating, I go in front of the mirror, I grab a brush and I like keep preaching. And it's like pulling, like preach. And so I go to him and I tell him about what happened. And he's like, yep, you're gonna preach on Sunday. And I'm like, what?
Yeah, after he told me that's what happened.
I'm like, what are you talking about? And then he says to me, but you should invite your teammates. And I was like, what?
So he doubled down.
He doubled down.
He fell out on the altar. No.
I told him no. And he said, only give me your answer after you pray about it. Prayed about it, obviously, God is saying to do it. And that was one of those moments of me finding the courage and boldness on the inside to go, like, these are the same teammates that 2 months ago I was in the club with, So now I'm going to them and saying, hey, I'm gonna be preaching at church.
Right.
You should come, check it out. And I was terrified to do it, but I did it. And that was that first moment of being like,
standing.
I can stand. And then all through the book, there are several stories that lead up to this big moment of standing, but each one was a building block that I was able to find courage and find that, oh wait, God is faithful. If you put your trust in God, even though how terrified or scared you are, he will keep you. He will be there to fight for you. That was the start of it all.
You said, as my faith was getting bigger, because there were bigger things coming. It wasn't just about speaking in front of a group of people at a church or standing up. What were the next big steps after that? Because it seems like every time you got a call from him, he's like, preaching, you're going to do this, you're going to do that, and you're just like, okay, you're stretching me, God.
That's exactly what it's been.
Mm-hmm.
It's been getting plugged in, planted in a local church,
yes,
and having the man of God speak faith and say, you're going to do this, you can do that, and I can't see it for myself. But I'm just trying my best to be obedient and take one step after the other. And I look on the side and say, oh my gosh, you were right. God is faithful. Like God is doing all these different things. And he just has the faith and the vision to see it. And so at the time, after I injured myself, I didn't re-sign my Nike contract, or they didn't re-sign me, whatever. And I went to him and I said, I don't have a sneaker company anymore. And he said, make your own. I said, okay, all right. So I went down the road of, okay, how can we make a sneaker, one, that's authentic to who I am, and that looks good. I have no idea how to do this, but the pieces just started falling into place.
Yeah.
The same way the book did. After he told me I should write a book, it was literally the next day my agent called me and said, hey, there's a book agent reaching out to me saying that she wants you to do a book. And I said, my pastor just told me to write a book. And so the pieces came together. And so I went down the road, we're gonna call it the Judah One. I want Bible verses to be on it, to be able to represent. I know that faith is such a big part of sports, and there are so many athletes who are playing past who would have loved to have a sneaker, a cleat, an undershirt, something that represented their faith as they took the court. And so that's where Unitas was born. First off, the Judah One, and then we talked about why just create this sneaker? Why not create an entire sports and apparel company that can give people the freedom to wear their values? And he came to me, same thing. He came to me and said he just got out of prayer. He said he was looking at he was looking at the altar. We have the
Ark of the Covenant at the altar.
Right.
He said he was looking at it and said, God, unite us. God, unite us.
Only God could unite us.
And then he said, unite us. Jonathan, you have to call it Unitas.
But Jonathan said something that is so key. The local church is so important, and being plugged into the local church. Jonathan got plugged in, grounded in God, and just began to grow with the vision. So it was easy to be able to speak into his life. And he listened, he followed.
Gentlemen, we appreciate you joining us here on Centerpoint. The book is Why I Stand. It's a bestseller. I think these shoes are going to be bestsellers. A lot of great things going on in your life right now, Jonathan, so we appreciate you taking the time. We know you're busy. In the church, tell us about your church real fast, where we can find it, the website.
Jump Ministries Global Church. You got to come. We're on West Colonial of Orlando, Florida. Church is dynamic. We say church building people and changing lives. You see all the glory and honor be to God. God is doing great things at Jump Ministries, and we would love for you to come and be a part of our services. Come and fellowship with us at Jump Ministries Global Church.
And I should add, if you run into him in your car, that's going to be a good thing, right? If you're in the parking lot,
everybody's gonna know now.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I saw you.
Yeah. I almost ran into him. This must be something. Speaking to my life.
Oh my God.
All right. Well, Dr. Hepburn, appreciate it. Jonathan Isaac, thank you so much for joining us here on Centerpoint. It's been great.
Thank you so much.
All the best. And give us that website one more time with the shoes and the gear.
WeAreUnitas.com. UNITUS. WeAreUnitas.
All right. A great example of literally walking by faith. We want to thank, of course, Jonathan and Dr. Hepburn for joining us here on Centerpoint. You can find Why I Stand anywhere books are sold.